Good morning, my fellow Americans. I'm going to make this quick and easy and as brief as possible and understandable, I think. What I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to give you an explanation on what a sovereign and a citizen is. And I'm going to explain why there's no such thing as a sovereign citizen that applies to everyone that wants to stick up for their rights. It only applies to a select group of individuals. Okay. The word sovereign means you're acting under God as the creator of this world, which is organic things. Okay. And God is a loose-fitted term just for the purpose of communicating with other men and women and beings out there in relation to what had created us, what is creating us, that we really can't put a definition to. It's more than our parents, it's more than a government. A citizen, okay, is under contract by the state and assumed to be believed by the country, which actually has been corporatized because the United States of America, having a president, is more identifiable as a corporation than it is a land of freedom, liberty, and justice for all. And note the term for all, which is very important. So, okay, so a sovereign is under God and as the private, natural man or woman in the living flesh and flowing blood. A citizen has a number assigned and is part of basically an LLC and considered property and under contract. Okay, so who can be labeled as a sovereign citizen? And don't call people that. It's slander and it's dangerous. Okay. So now let's see this. Judges can be called sovereign citizens because they are actually as administrators who have put on a title and a cloak. And nowadays, because I don't believe there's really many judges out there. Antonin Scalia is not here anymore either. Notice that. Okay, they put on a cloak and a robe, and they are assigned in a circumstance of contract where they are bringing consequence and punishment to you. So therefore, understand that a law is designed to prevent victims from being created in the physical form. You know, victims of destruction, bodily harm or injury or death, incapacitation. Okay, a law is designed for that. Okay, a statute is designed to go on assumptions based on you're hurting a circumstance by not complying. Okay, there's a very, very big difference. So a judge will put on the cloak. As a sovereign, they put on the cloak, and then they become a sovereign citizen. Okay, where they will administrate charges to you for an offense, which is most of the time based on a statute, and deliver consequences and punishment, which is actually breaking a law. Okay. State's attorneys are sovereign, who are under contract in the United States with a bar, in America's land, okay, with a de facto government of the United States of America, as bar attorneys, okay, part of a contract again. They're wearing a title to issue charges against you. So that's actually breaking a law because that's hurting you, okay? On behalf of cops who are citizens on patrol, okay, who are the same walk of life as you and I, and sovereign, but once they put on the uniform, they become sovereign citizens because they're acting under contract to deliver citations and presentations and tickets, whatever you want to call it, based on statutes, which I would say, in my opinion, is about 85% of the time. So those are breaking laws because unless there's a victim for that other 15% of the time, or even 20 actually, because there's a lot of terrible people out there that hurt people and damage things. So a cop is actually a sovereign citizen, delivering a crime against you by pressing statutes which the state's attorneys back, which the judges follow through with. You have to understand that. So those three figures right there, cops, judges, and state's attorneys, including assistant state's attorneys, okay, they are acting as sovereign citizens. Pretty much those are the only ones that can be labeled as sovereign citizens. Now, and to call someone a sovereign citizen is slander, and that's a chargeable offense because it's breaking the law by creating a stigma that can damage somebody's life. So don't do it, especially to me. Anybody that is existing in America, okay, that was born here or arrived here through an organic form through, let's just call it birth because it's a relative term of communication. They are sovereign to begin with. Once they get a social security number, a driver's license or ID card, and that capital letter straw man name comes out, they become a citizen, and most of the time they don't contest that or revoke that because you can't do that when you're a baby, and you probably don't know when you're 18, when you mature as a piece of property, which is becoming less, I think, now. And, anyway, that's another subject. To act as a sovereign, okay, and to use that to your advantage, you cannot have a record or reputation existing on paper, okay, where you have created an actual victim of bodily harm or death or property damage or incapacitation to someone else that prevents them from their livelihood or sustenance or pursuit of happiness. That's the way it is. This is my notes, okay? They're very, it's in my head. I don't have the time to put on a suit and play them monkey games. Okay, so now when you're traveling, because there's a difference between traveling and driving, and this is where a lot of sovereign citizens, labeled sovereign citizens on YouTube, which is a terrible thing. Anybody that claims they're a sovereign citizen, you're making a mistake. Okay, so anybody that is traveling without insurance, you are endangering someone because of the circumstance of odds that exist and liability based on mechanical failures, based on circumstances of inadequate roadways, traffic, and things like that. Congestion and distraction. So, it's a responsible thing in this day and age to have insurance. So if you're traveling around without insurance, you're wrong. I don't agree with it. Okay? And for an insurance agent who's actually the front for a racketeering process and pyramid scheme, to say that your rate has to be higher because you live in an area, technically is operating on a bias, and it's an area profiling, which the same thing as sobriety test. You're not allowed to do that, really, because that's breaking the law by interrupting somebody without due cause. Okay, and when you're a sovereign, without a record, you have the right to due process for as long as it takes for you to administrate any charges that come against you, okay? And also, within the Federal Supreme Court of the United States of America, or shall I say America, the Supreme Court of America, the statute of limitations do not apply for you to seek damages or deliver criminal charges and punishment to those that have hurt you. An example can be a cop, a judge, or a state's attorney, because those things are on record and they don't go away, which is another reason why you really can't have a record. Okay, and for me in my circumstance, I went through a matter and an incident with the police where they used excessive force. They came out of their jurisdiction, their assumed jurisdiction, and actually hurt me. And so my defense was, A, I had a signed contract by the owner of the property, and B, I had no prior record. Technically, I still don't, of any kind of violence or creating a victim. Okay, so the best route for me to go was to claim my sovereignty as a private natural man in the living flesh and flowing blood, okay? which on paper takes away the capital letter name. And if you understand a lot about copywriting, if your name was copyrighted, every time you use that name, you are agreeing to a contract. It gets deep, believe me. Okay, so in my circumstance, the best route for me to take was to act as an indigenous American in the living flesh and the flowing blood organically, to stand on my civil rights, which still apply unless you're a citizen, which is why people are getting hurt and wronged and going to jail and whatever for so long. Okay, so I acted on that because that was in my best interest, because they wanted to give me time, okay, to protect the police officer for what he did, which I had proof of what he did. And eventually they threw those charges out, which would have been either 2 or 4 years in jail with probation, you know, based on false charges. And the officer had labeled me as a sovereign citizen on his police report, but somebody that was acting illy stole my police report. So when I got the next one, it took a long time to come, and it was totally different. So it was rewritten. So there's a bunch of crimes there, and I can go after all these people. And what followed that was they arrested me in another county for false charges based on a national driver's registry and the insurance industry, saying that I was driving on a suspended license as a repeat offender. Well, at that point, having disproved all of those things, they put me in front of a judge who was actually corrupt, and you know, you could look up her name. I say it on other videos, but so once they had me in another court, the state's attorney and Broward County and the state of Florida in Broward County, I think it was the 17th Judicial Court Complex Circuit Court, they claimed qualified immunity, so I couldn't go after them. I never mention money because it's not about money. You know, if it said U.S. currency and not a Federal Reserve note, it would have been a different story, but you need to learn about that too. But the basic meaning of this video is to debunk the term sovereign citizen. Okay, because you are all sovereign under God, the powers that be. I identify that which I cannot see but feel to trust as the Spirit of the Almighty, power of goodness, and the force of creation. Because we were all created with good intentions, and we are all given a spirit. And it is a high spirit that acts out of love and not hate and manipulation and sadistic evil ways. So again, let's backtrack here. Sovereign citizen, technically and realistically, can only be applied to cops, judges, and state's attorneys, trickling down or up to commanders, sergeants, sheriffs, assistant state's attorneys, senators, attorney generals, governors, and presidents. But I just used the basic 3 because that's who you are most likely to deal with in this world in your everyday life while you are privately traveling on organic soil, even if it's a road of tar. It doesn't matter. Unless it's an interstate or a highway, then you pay a toll, and then technically the DOT has to come after you for anything, not the police or cops. Okay, so once you are operating in that circumstance, okay, you will notice the difference between traveling and driving. You will notice the difference between income and earning, and you will notice the difference between being private and public. Okay, and you will notice the difference between being a person, as in a persona, or one of the people. Okay, and some of these terms are use discretion with them, because there are many different forms of literature and also dictionaries and descriptions that are used in different branches of government, whether it's state, county, city, town, country, you know, geographical areas have their own rules. And, you know, like, I don't have a problem with that. And I said, like, I don't have a problem with insurance. I just think it should be a fair cut rate. I don't think that anyone that has committed an actual crime by breaking a law and creating a victim should be trying to use their sovereignty to get out of trouble, because you're making it bad for the reality, okay? And the reality of people like myself, okay, who govern myself accordingly, which you should do. Govern yourself accordingly. So, you know, in these terms, you need to find where you stand. And as a sovereign, being part of society, which you cannot escape and you were appeared into without being able to contest, because, you know, of resources and limitations in certain geographical areas that are not yours, that you're forced to operate in, you are forced to be a citizen. Okay? So technically, it's good to have both circumstances, but in the case of someone like myself, who doesn't have a past record of creating a victim, okay, and who makes sure my tracks are defined and covered with righteousness, not to offend anybody as to create a victim, it's good to be a sovereign, okay, not a sovereign citizen, because then you are pretending to be like them, and it's a hypocritical thing. And I'll define this too. One of your worst enemies that you may not know is your automobile insurance agent, because if you've ever noticed, they're not sovereign citizens, they're sovereigns on the take, okay? And you know what, instead of saying sovereign, it's better to be American, okay, not a U.S. citizen, okay? So they are Americans on the take, okay, and trapping good-hearted people by signing them up with a bias to a system within government that they are liable for, okay? And they're making money and charging what they want off it, because, like, they're hooked up directly to the computers that are hooked up to the Department of Motor Vehicle, okay, who are in touch with the police, okay, more so than other people. It will take you so much to go down to the driver's license office or tax collector and get your record, but if you go to an insurance agent, they'll tell you every personal conveyance you've ever owned, you know, or household appliance that's a mobility device to get your groceries and take you to see your friends and family. Okay, and they're really hooked up, so no one's looking at them, but we need to look at them and hold them accountable. Because, in a sense, they're the ones that are destroying American families and taking away our liberties by taxation and imposing statutes on us, which are no laws. Okay, they are guidelines based on a state's preference. And most people say, oh, the state's Constitution is better than the federal United States of America, American Constitution. No, it isn't, because it's complicated. And the more complicated things get, the more you end up entrapping yourself. So becoming a sovereign is something that you already are. Don't call people a sovereign citizen. And if you call yourself a sovereign citizen, you're in the wrong. If you have a record and you're doing things, you know, that are considered illicit and unlawful by creating a victim or endangering somebody, which in this day and age, without having, I'll say the word automobile insurance, you are endangering someone. So for those hundreds of videos around where people are, you know, traveling around, okay, and they got no plate, they have no registration, they have no license, okay, and no insurance, you're wrong, okay, because you don't have nothing to stand on because you don't have insurance, okay, and you should have a form of ID. You know, if you made your own plate and sent it in and got it accepted would be different, but the fact that you're not doing that at all, you're not identifying yourself, and this is a consideration that people need to have. So I don't mind having a license plate, because technically that's my form of identification only for those that are in view of me when I'm traveling, just in case there's a discrepancy, they happen to be looking for an actual perpetrator committing a crime or a criminal or somebody doing evil acts, okay? You can identify me by that. The registration, technically, it's not a bad thing because you're registering your personal conveyance with the state for a form of safety. So if it gets stolen, or if you do get pulled over by a sovereign citizen pretending to be a police officer or a cop, you know, which is the same thing, you know, it helps them identify you and make sure that you didn't steal your household mobile appliance for transportation. Okay. Titling, it's okay to have a title as well, but technically I don't like the formalities that go with the title and registration and driver's license, because they're entrapping, they're all encompassing to take you away from your sovereignty and make you a citizen, which is limiting yourself and robbing you of civil rights. Okay, so the best thing to do is to be claiming yourself. If you have no record and no past criminal activity that's on files of you creating a victim as an indigenous American, okay, which is the same thing technically as a sovereign in the sense of being in the United States. It might be another word in another country, but it actually applies there too. But other countries have governments that are really superimposing and to a degree very fascist and ignorant, and people don't get to speak there. But remember, freedom, liberty, and justice for all is your key, okay? Because that statement right there is on the United States of America's Constitution, okay? And we need a leader, not a president. You'll notice things will change if we happen to have a revolution and the government changes their words. If there's a refining and a healing going on. But, you know, so it's great, and it's the best opportunity to be in America as an American. And don't be throwing the word sovereign citizen around loosely. And if someone claims sovereignty, don't attach the word citizen to it and give them a bias, because that is slander. You're causing damage, and at a point in time you're going to be brought up for slander because it's causing damage to people. And this is why I'm making this video. You really need to understand the facts here. So, you know, if you want to live the best life you can with the most opportunities, you're going to find that you don't have to break laws which create victims, and you could live as an American, okay, without imposing limitations on yourself that will allow others to come in your life and cause damage. And, you know, keep in mind that I'm going to reflect on states' attorneys, which are at the same level as lawyers, which are on the same level as a category implemented within our government, considered to be a tool as a bar member attorney. Okay, you know, really that's a private organization that has been used by the government within each state. And when you get a public defender, you know, they're a bar member attorney, so they're not going to set you free without getting money out of the treasury from you. And listen, you cannot go and say, I want to buy property based on the treasury, okay? Your account in the treasury is there for the purpose of keeping you safe and paying the system of courts and the justice system to operate to help you and release you. So you can't say, okay, I'm going to write a bond for myself based on the treasury and I'm going to buy a $6 million property. You're committing fraud, and you're going against the premise of the social contract that goes with our country, America. Okay, so don't think that you have benefit to that. And if you're going to write claims about money to try and get back at the system, or think that that's going to free you if you're in trouble, it's not going to work. I'm a free man right now because I never mentioned money. Okay, I denounced anybody that was writing papers for me that was based on putting claims against the state and city. And I pointed out clearly that individuals on behalf of the state of Florida were running a malicious prosecution against me and breaking the law, okay? And you got to understand the whole complex nature of that, which comes against you, can be dealt with, okay? And yeah, it is painful. Yeah, it costs a lot of time. Most people don't have it, and they'll go through a process of exhaustion and fail, because it's designed to make you fail by individuals that have been implemented there since a very long time now. So, you know, there's so much more of this to understand. I have other videos and things too, but, you know, I'm not asking you to take it with a grain of salt. I'm asking you to take it for face value, please, because if we're going to reestablish the liberty and justice and freedoms that the premise and idea of America is based on, for the people, by the people, okay, you need to start realizing this and incorporating it into your everyday life. And, you know, a simple exercise for you would be to try to contest a traffic ticket. Something as simple as a seatbelt. You know, I explain in a couple other videos, whether you like the videos or not and think that you're offended because your family member might be a law enforcement or government, you know, that shows that you're operating on egos and emotions, and that's why the system has become corrupt, because they're using you as a tool because you get out of hand, because you can't control your emotions. And I agree, it's very hard, especially when the world comes against you, and even members of your family are saying, oh, why don't you just obey the law and take your punishment? I've been there, believe me. I've had my whole friends and my whole, you know, circle of social connections and commercial connections abandon me because they didn't want to be part of my life, because they're scared of that. But until you know, don't judge. Okay? So, let's go over it one more time. Sovereign is an American, private, natural being in the living flesh and flowing blood. You travel, you earn, and you, what is the other one? Man, it's just so much in here. Okay, yeah, you travel, you earn, and you are private. The citizen, okay, is basically your straw man identity. I don't like the term straw man, it is what it is. That's what people usually say. So a citizen is your straw man identity that's in the commercial context, where you commit a commercial act of driving. You commit a commercial exercise of making an income. And you, you know, you go with that. It's the same vicious circle all over and over. And as another note, if you want to deal with the courts, don't get involved in case law, because you got to understand that, you know, paralegals assist attorneys at law, not in law, to get that information. Unless you have an ample amount of time and money to survive, and the composure to pull it off, and all the resources to look up all these things, you're going into a fight that's unfair to begin with, and you're most likely going to lose, or just be put out and put out. You know, I don't think I'm arrogant, I'm confident, but my circumstance was very, very rare and very cut and dry for who I was and what they tried to do to me. And in turn, they handed me their ass in completeness, because they showed me the true reality of the situation step by step, mirrored from 2 counties. So I got to learn. I've gotten to learn that, and being rejected from the military services because A, I was sterile. Actually, B, I was sterile, and A, initially, you know, I wasn't a white person, a white people that had an actual high school diploma, and they didn't accept that at the time. I felt it was my opportunity and my duty to serve America and put a drop in the bucket for our side in obtaining our freedom, liberty, and justice for all, and reinstating the grace of those things. Because this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. And, you know, please comment if you want, because I like to learn stuff about people too and where they're coming from, and it helps me be well-rounded, okay? I'm not going to ask you to subscribe to my channel, because I feel if it's fate, you will subscribe, because you will want to be associated and know. And if you're fearful and your profile doesn't have anything on it and you're just living as a ghost, stop being scared, because you're not helping you or us. And I say us as America. Okay, so from this natural American, indigenous here, I say, all the best to you, with peace, prosperity, health, wealth, goodness, and positivity in abundance, with enough to share. Be well, my fellow Americans and people of the world, and know that a guy like me, there are no borders to the effects that love and kindness and unity can have for the preservation and evolution of our species in the better way, so we can ascend this reality that we're in now, that has been corrupted by the down-press of man. Peace. Take care, my folks.